Hey, welcome back to the NoFX podcast. I'm your host, Lane, joined by this guy over here, Hercules, as usual.
What's up,
And
everybody?
we're back with another list of things, this time pertaining to probably the most pushed set since, I don't know, Lord of the Rings last year. It's Modern Horizons 3, which has also been very pushed the last two times that that type of set was printed. It's basically the master set for Modern, so to speak, but because we happen to play an Eternal format, all of the cards are legal, and that means a lot of goodies for Pauper, EDH, and cEDH, and probably a lot of other things in between. It's not standard legal, but fuck standard anyway, right? So who plays that garbage? Ugh. Modern also seems like a pretty fun format. I've never dipped my toes into it, but it does seem like a kind of more competitive and exciting version of standard, so to speak, but I digress. We've got some cards to talk about. There are probably a lot more cards to talk about than what we're going to talk about today, but we found that amongst our cEDH content creating peers, we tend to find some things more interesting to talk about than others, and vice versa. So we're going to jump right in. We've got about the same amount of honorable mentions as what's actually on the list itself, but most of the honorable mentions I think we can run through pretty quick because they're fairly straightforward. And then we'll try to spend a little bit more time on the main set or main list of the stuff that we know is going to be good enough and see play. So with that said, let's get it started. Again, we're in the honorable mentions. Disclaimer as usual. Your mileage may vary. These are our opinions, etc., etc. File disclaimer and legal texts down here. Yeah, these are cards that we thought were interesting enough to talk about. Some of them are garbage and aren't actually going to see play, but like they had some kind of uniqueness to them that made it where we thought it was worth talking about. So let's get it started. First one here is Amphibian Downpour. This is an enchantment aura in blue for 2 and a blue. It has flash, so it can be cast at instant speed. It has storm, so it can have multiple implications, and this is the first enchantment aura that I can think of that has storm. Where each one of the things, if this resolves and you have, like, say, Storm Count 4, you're going to create 3 additional token copies of this card to distribute as you see fit. It says Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1, which is reminiscent of, like, Kasmina's transformation and Frogify, and I think there was one that, like, hit all of one player's creatures for a turn, but it was just the end of turn. In this case, in the middle of a counterspell war, their storm counts like 3 or 4. You can just be like, haha, fuck you guys, and just drop this and hit like everybody's most effective creatures, the things that are shutting you off, etc., etc. Also, if you're, in some sort of infinite mana loop or doing ad nos things or whatever, and you've got a high storm count, this can potentially shut off every creature on the board. So now you're no longer under rule of laws. You're no longer under XYZ. Although if you're under rule of law, why are you casting Adnos? But I digress.
Or why are you casting this if it's only going to be 2 creatures? Maybe
Right.
that's relevant enough. I will say, I think Lane secretly put this on a list because he wants to run it in his Grolnok the Omnivore list, so he can turn all of his own creatures into frog and get that extra mill effect. That's what
I mean, super cool, but I actually don't have a Grolnok list. I played that one time
man.
on one video, and I have no intentions of playing it again. Regardless, it is kind of a pseudo board wipe, which has the upside of not killing anything, so any creatures that get this enchantment put on them are gonna stick on the board, so they can't be reanimated for value. However, it does feed Dockside, which is its biggest downside, and it's also 3 mana you gotta hold up just to hope that somebody has a storm turn and you can affect it. But, I guess then again, also it's just a 3 mana, get rid of the thing that's bothering you right now, and it's flash speed, so you can do it on the guy before you use end step. It's interesting enough. Is it good enough? I don't know. Pongify's 1 mana, gets rid of the problem. This is 3 mana, gets rid of the problem, but has that upside of maybe gets rid of a lot of problems. Also, if you turn everything into 1/1s, you can blow them up with Orcish Bowmasters, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, one-sided humility doesn't seem too terrible, right? Like, there are certainly decks that have tried that and play that, so...
Yeah, yeah, and that's probably all there is to say. I just thought it's cute. It's cute. It's not amazing, but I think it's all right. Next up is Harbinger of the Seas, which we don't really need to read too much outside of it's a merfolk, it's a wizard, so you can wizard cycle into it. It's a 2/2 body for 1 and 2 blue that says non-basic lands are islands. So this is the blue version of Magus of the Moon. And though that card doesn't see a whole ton of play anymore, this and Urza, slam dunk, banger of a card. You're playing nothing but basics anyway, so why not? You know.
This one's I think I've heard it affectionately called Flood Moon, which I think is hilarious. This one has the upside too, like if you're playing Magus the Moon, Blood Moon effects, a lot of times if you're shutting off blue from your opponents, you're shutting off their ability to interact with your opponent, like similar to the white blue legend, that kind of a problem where you can shut off their mana to interact and stop them. And also turning them into islands means they can't use their freaking mana to cast their dockside to get out from under their lock piece like they could if it was a Blood Moon. So there's that.
But also kind of a downside that now you've given the other blue players at the table a lot more blue to work with, which could hurt you. And with any card, you kind of have these ups and downs, goods and bads. And I don't know. It's a unique effect that has only been in red until now. And that's why I thought it was worth mentioning. And again, it's relevant creature types. Merfolk decks are abound. Wizard cycling and tutoring for either type is pretty prevalent. So
plus it's a blue card in your hand for your forces. So there you go.
Exactly. So next one is Consigned to Memory. I'll let you take this one. So.
Consigned to Memory, 1 blue instant. It has Replicate of 1 colorless, which is when you cast it, you copy it for each time you paid its Replicate cost, and you can choose new targets for the copies. Counter target triggered ability or colorless spell. So you can counter a Thassa's Oracle ATB trigger. You can counter a Dockside ATB trigger. You can counter the One Ring on the stack. You can replicate this multiple times, targeting the same spell, forcing your opponent to have multiple counter spells to stop you, hopefully.
It is good, and having the replicate, I think, is what sells it. If it was just 1 mana without the replicate, this is dog shit and you don't play it. I had a discussion about this in the spoilers chat on my Discord, which, by the way, Discord is free to join for anyone. I can put the link in the description. Y'all should come play games with us, talk about stuff, hang out. It's a cool place. But yeah, I had a discussion with, it was actually my brother-in-law that brought it up, and I was like, man, every stifle effect, they're just not good enough. I always cut them. The one I referenced was Tail's End, which is like stifle an effect or counter a legendary creature, I think it was.
Right, yeah.
So it had the upside of like you can counter somebody's commander, or you can stifle any sort of effect, which is cool, but that costs 2 mana. In this case, this costs 2 mana, but it's an additional copy. This is the Flusterstorm for triggered abilities, and 2 of the triggered abilities that were already mentioned are some of the most prevalent in the format. So this is probably, finally, a stifle effect that's worth playing in cEDH. Especially because it can just hose a One Ring or anything else that's colorless. And, we've got an influx of Eldrazi coming in that I am sure some people are going to try and jam in their cEDH lists. Even though they probably shouldn't. We're not talking about any of them today because they're just not good enough. But in casual lists, they're great. I love my Joda list that just slams fucking Eldrazi's on the field and makes everybody's life miserable. But it's just not feasible in cEDH for that to be a thing. So, but this also can be played in casual to counter those things. So, win-win, I suppose.
I do like that it can also, if you're playing Magecraft triggers or you're looking for Magecraft triggers, you can replicate and get more triggers there, which is good. I mean, there's a couple of decent spells or creatures that have
Archmage Emeritus.
And then the red one that makes
draws you a couple cards.
Stuff, so.
Yeah, make a couple treasures.
Yeah, it's got. I mean, and just the fact that you need them to have either a Flusterstorm exactly or multiple copies of this is pretty good. It's also weirdly relevant because we play against a frequent counterbalance flyer. I don't believe the copies that you would replicate with this would be triggering counterbalance, so you could get this counterbalanced with the remaining triggered copies.
Yeah, counterbalance does not trigger off of copies, to my knowledge.
Yeah, so there you go. Suck it, counterbalance.
I am one of the counterbalance players, so no likey, but here we are. Next up is this one you like a lot, so go ahead and read that one off. It's the Marionette Apprentice.
Oh, I love this card. So Marionette Apprentice, 1 black and 1 for a 1/2 human artificer. It's got Fabricate 1. When it enters, You can put a +1/+1 counter on it, or create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. And whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life. So it's your new
Marionette
aristocrats.
Master.
Does that one cost 6 to cast? The original one?
It's 4. It's 2 black and 4, and I believe it's like a 4/5 or something. And it's got, I want to say, Fabricate 2 maybe.
But yeah, so this one I do love it because you're getting the aristocrat effect not only on your creatures like your Zulaport, Cutthroat, and Blood Artist, which granted this one's not gaining you life, but you're draining all the opponents instead of just a target with like a Blood Artist. But it's also artifacts. So if you're doing any kind of dockside looping with treasures, you got them. Boom, they're dead, and Bob's your uncle.
Disciple of the Vault is 1 mana and has the same sort of clause with artifacts in the grave, but is it each opponent? I cannot recall.
I think it's only target.
I think it might only be target as well.
Yeah, target opponent loses 1 life.
Okay.
So you can't.
So this
Disciple of the
being
Vault with the ring
symmetrical
protection.
along the board is makes it a little bit better, even though it is 1 extra mana. And notably, it's a 1/2, so like it doesn't immediately die to fucking Bowmasters. But also, if you fabricate it, it becomes a 2/3. If you put the 1/1 counter instead of getting the servo. And honestly, you probably don't need the servo because this is going to be comboing with other stuff. It is the loss of life as well, so like 1 ring protection doesn't stop them from losing the game. So yeah, it's just a cheaper version of a known win con that isn't in every deck, but it is a card that's played here and there. So and I think that this like being cheaper and having this effect may make this that combo better for a bigger variety of decks, because if you're in Adnaz, you're not playing that 6-drop. But if you're in Adnaz, maybe you can afford to play this 2-drop and just have that extra, sort of drain effect for value or for a win con.
Yep, I do like that. I mean, granted, the 2/3 body is pretty huge for 2 mana, weirdly. But the ability to make a creature token instead is pretty nice in black because you've got Diabolic Intent.
Yeah, sure.
Which is pretty sweet. Or if you're in like a black-green deck, you can make an extra body for Cradle.
Culling the Weak, Deadly Dispute. There's a new card that's in here that we're not talking about right this moment, but I was just talking with Kirk about prior to that is actually pretty good considering that it's a common. It's Eviscerator's Insight. It's a 1 and a black instant. Additional cost, cast a spell, sack an artifact or a creature. So yeah, there you go. This can it's an artifact and a creature, so either clause is met. And you just draw 2 cards, which is Deadly Dispute, but Deadly Dispute also makes you treasure. But either way, this has flashback for 4 and a black, which is expensive, but if you want the effect twice, you can get it twice. So
yeah, I'm really thinking even more into that. Like you've got a creature here for your Eldritch Evolutions if you need to get a 2-drop, like a Dockside if you're in like those colors, etc. So yeah, this is pretty decent. And I like it's almost modal, being able to create a 2/3 or 2 bodies if that's more relevant. So,
all right. So the next one, we agree we like it to some degree, but we haven't decided if it's good. And I've actually only seen it played like 1 time, and it didn't do anything. So it's Power Balance. This is we already spoke of Counterbalance earlier. Counterbalance is the blue version, which is 2 blue and says whenever somebody casts a spell, you reveal a top card. If it's the same CMC, counter that spell. It's free counter spells. It's fucking amazing. Top tier ace card. If you can run it, you probably should. It's
debatable, but anyway.
I love that card. Maybe a pet card, but this is got even more of a niche pet card that might be pretty good, but it's not deterministic, so it makes it to where it's kind of, I think, worse than Counterbalance. Counterbalance also not deterministic, but your chances, especially if somebody casts a 2 power or 2 CMC spell, the chances of you flipping a 2 CMC off the top pretty high, given that that's probably the majority of your list. Anyhow, this is 2 red enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may reveal the top card of your library. If you do, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost, if both spells have the same mana values. So this is the same thing as Counterbalance, where somebody casts a 2-drop, you reveal a 2-drop, you counter it. Instead, they cast a 2-drop, you reveal a 2-drop, and now you get to cast that 2-drop for free, and does not have any sort of timing restrictions because this card is just a triggered ability, and that's what happens. Also, notably, something you can counter with the Consign to Memory, because it is a triggered effect. half the time this is not going to do shit for you. You're just going to reveal cards and give away information, and nothing's going to happen. And the other half of the time, you're going to be able to cast shit for free.
It might have a bigger upside than Counterbalance. Like, I know Counterbalance has got the like the scare factor, and like, you know, do you go for it, do you not, etc. Answer is you almost always go for it. Anywho, whereas this one, if you flip into something and it happens to have the same CMC, you've then now cleared the top deck. You don't know what the next card down is, right? So you get card advantage off of this, whereas Counterbalance, you might stop opponents, but you don't really get card advantage. This one also plays really great with, you know, if you're in your Vamp Tutors or Worldly Tutors, etc., because you can manipulate the top deck, play shit for free, which is pretty gross.
But here's the thing, you're in red, so outside of top and scroll rack, maybe, like, you're not really manipulating the top of your deck very much unless you're in another color that can.
Sure.
So getting the most value, like, this is probably like an is it card, really, like being able to manipulate, or I guess there's other black as well. You know, you got top deck tutors.
Vamp tutors always live, right? So
there's things, and then like you also have like the same thing that happens with Counterbalance with like Rhystic Study is like you get both triggers. You can go, okay, do I reveal now? Do I draw? Do I reveal? And then you draw, and then you reveal, and you're like, fuck, I shouldn't have revealed. I should have drawn. Blah blah blah. So like there's ups and downs, but it's very fitting because it's a red card, and red is all about chaos, and this is very chaotic. Because it has that whole, maybe I get a thing, and maybe I get to cast it for free, and that's dope. But then, I just don't like it because it's like, you paid 2 mana to put this thing on the board that does nothing, immediately does nothing. And then, it maybe gets you some value on your next turn, or during that turn cycle, maybe it doesn't, but 90% of the time I feel like you're just going to be giving away information about what's on top of your deck, and I don't like that.
But I could make the same exact argument for Counterbalance, right?
Yes,
like, so,
yes. But the thing is that Counterbalance is countering shit, whereas this is just going to cast a fucking Mana Dork for free, and who gives a shit?
Yeah, if you're playing Mana Dork, sure. But I mean, this could also cast a Dockside for free. This could cast a Demonic Tutor for free. You know,
yes.
Like that's the thing.
It does
like,
have the higher ceiling, but like the floor is probably worse. But that's me.
I mean, the floor is it's a red card in your hand versus a blue card in your hand for force. So I concur.
And you're not pitching red cards for anything because what are you playing, Fury?
Pyrokinesis.
I mean, anyway, that was a better example, but still same issue.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so yeah, not like again, it's
a hard one to evaluate.
It's not terrible, but it's not going to be reliable for you, and that's the thing that I think is worse for me.
This is one I could see two things could happen. It fades into non-existent. You see it in Fringe play, or we come back a year later and go, "Wow, we really shit the bed on this because this card's amazing." So I could see it going either way.
I mean, we still got to do our review of last year's shit, and we're already 6 months into the year. So
time flies, baby.
Man, it's fucking 2024, halfway gone. Who'd have thought? Like, feels like yesterday was a pandemic, but
no doubt, right?
All right, next one. I'm very high on this card. Kirk, maybe not as much, but it is Ghostfire Slice. This is 2 and a red for an instant. It is devoid, which means the card has no color. So it's essentially a colorless spell, but it requires a colored mana to cast, which is a weird mechanic that they introduced in like fucking Zendikar or whatever years ago. Yeah. But it says that the spell costs 2 generic less to cast if an opponent controls a multicolored permanent. Not a lot of people are playing monocolored commanders, and it's any opponent. It's not just the guy you're targeting, it's any opponent. So the likelihood of there being a 2-color Thrasios, a 2-color Tymna, a 3-color fucking do-to-do, there's multicolored commanders abound. It's likely that this is going to cost you 1 mana, and it says Ghostfire Slice deals 4 damage to any target. 1 mana do 2 damage is called a shock, right? Because of shock. 1 mana does 3 damage is lightning bolt because of lightning bolt. So I guess 1 mana 4 damage is slice?
Let's call it a blast because of Galvan Blast.
Sure. So anyhow, I know that some people are experimenting with playing like Hydroblast and Blue Elemental Blast because of the prevalence of Dockside and just other good red cards. So this can't be countered by those. That's an upside because it's devoid. And the likelihood of you being able to cast this for 1 mana is also very high. But even in the worst case scenario, you got to pay fucking 3 mana for it. So be it. It hits all kinds of relevant creatures. It kills Winota, it kills Dauntless Dismantler, it kills all kinds of 4-butts, and 4-butts are kind of like the thing that are sort of invulnerable in our format, outside of, swords and other things that just straight up kill or exile. As far as doing damage with a red burn spell, 3 has been kind of the limit for a while now, and that was why it was worth running Lightning Bolt, because you can kill that Drannith, or you can kill, whatever you need to get rid of, but you couldn't kill the Winota or the,
Crom.
Myrel, or, there's a 1,000 other things that are 4-drops. So if you can cast this for 1 red and blow up a Crom, you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one for me to evaluate because it depends. It's pod specific, because there are times where you will see all 3 opponents with only only mono-colored permanents in the play.
Mean, Carpet of Flowers can be a dead card. There's other ones as well. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but there are cards like Pyroblast. You're in a pod with no blue, and you got Pyroblast in hand.
At least you can pitch that to a Chrome Mox and get red mana. Like, you can't do that with this, so
sure.
Colorless mana. So I don't know. I mean, I hate it because it kills Stella Lee. That's secretly what it is, and she's my new jam. So
yeah, the truth comes out. There
it is. Okay, damn it.
So we're there. All right. So this one is a new artifact sort of stacksy piece that's reminiscent of some other cards that exist in the format. It's a Disruptor Flute. It's 2 generic for an artifact with flash, which is not something you get out of artifacts too often. As it ETBs, you choose a card name, and then spells with the chosen name cost 3 more to cast. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So immediately we're thinking, okay, you play this early and you name the One Ring or Adnaz or whatever. One Ring all of a sudden is now a 7 mana costing thing and can't even be activated. Adnaz now costs 8. That guy's never casting Adnaz. And you can name literally fucking anything. This is very reminiscent of Pithing Needle and Phyrexian Revoker. Pithing Needle, I think, is 1 mana. Regular artifact, it just, you name the thing and that it's got the same sort of clause. And then Phyrexian Revoker, same thing, but it's a 2/2 or 2/1 body artifact creature. Same ideas. But neither of those have flash. So this has got that upside. The tax, instead of it being you just can't cast the thing, is worse, but 3 more to cast is actually kind of backbreaking for combo decks that want to just shit stuff out turn 2 and try to win. If you get this down turn 1, or even flash it in on the guy you suspect might be going for the Adnaz on his turn, you flash it in on his upkeep, now he can't. I guess he could do it in response, but I don't know. It's got its uses. Is this a fucking banger, goes in every list? No. It's definitely for the stack decks that are out there, but I think it's pretty solid. I think it's going to see some play.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, Revoker and Pithing Needle see some play. This one, I don't see any reason it wouldn't. So
we've got another one here that's similar to that Ghost Fire do Slice. This one is Galvanic Discharge, and it's basically an additional Lightning Bolt for mono red burn, style lists or things that want more removal in their red package. It's essentially an additional copy of Lightning Bolt, outside of the fact that it can't target players. That is the one downside, but it is also common, so it's pauper legal. This is a great card for that format, but Galvanic Discharge, 1 red, instant, choose target creature or planeswalker, you get 3 energy. Then you may pay any amount of energy, and it deals that much damage to that permanent. So essentially, it gives you the 3 damage that you need to equate it to Lightning Bolt. But if you are on some sort of energy synergies otherwise, you could potentially pay this for 1, only spend 1 energy, hit the 1 drop that you want to get rid of, that's pissing you off for whatever reason. You got a grudge against that 1 fucking mana dork, and you're just like, he's gonna die. Maybe better example, you spend 2 energy, you hit the Deathrite Shaman because it's the best target on the board, or the Delighted Halfling, whatever the case may be, and you're still floating some energy. You
can kill that Allosaurus Shepherd for that 1 energy, buddy. You got it.
Yeah, there you go. There's a lot of things that you might be pissed off at, and you're just like, fuck
Screw that
guy.
Sentinel. Get it out of here, right?
Screw that guy. We're gonna hit that shit. So yeah, it's basically another Lightning Bolt. Like I said, you can't hit face with it, which sucks, but it's still got that little bit of potential. And again, energy synergy. has been pushed in this set. It was pushed a bit in Fallout, and then we've got the old stuff from Kaladesh, Eighth Revolt. So amongst the few sets that they've got, Energy's got a pretty decent amount of support now, to where I think some Energy-styled decks may start to emerge. But yeah,
Wouldn't surprise me.
That's pretty much all there was to say about that.
I would say really quick on this one, it does have the advantage too. If you can, like, if you're in a breach deck and you're playing this, you play it, you kill some 2-drop, and then if you need to remove a butt with 4, you got that leftover energy, you flash it back to do that. So it does have some weird upside over possibly a lightning bolt. I'm not sure how to evaluate it, so I play it, but it seems decent.
Yeah, it's a common, so it's not going to be fucking knocking your pants off. But
yeah, exactly.
They're like halfway down. Yeah, next one is that style. Fanatic. You can read that one off.
Fanatic of Ronus. It is 1 green and 1 for a 1/4 snake druid. No longer Nagas. I think that's dead. Tap for a green mana. It has Ferocious, which is if you control a creature power 4 or greater, you can activate it. Tap it for 4 green mana. And it has Eternalize for 2 green and 2, which is exile it from your grave, create a 4/4 black zombie token. That's a copy of it as a sorcery, I think. So yeah, it's a 2 mana, 1/4 mana dork that taps for green. If you have a power of 4 or greater, it taps for 4 green.
This is slam dunk in Selvala for sure, because Selvala is already trying to have that bigger threshold of bigger creatures. Even if it is only for that turn or for a while, this still is going to tap for 4 more, and it's also going to contribute to your guys' Cradle mana, or your fucking the force of whatever that comes in and draws you cards equal to your green creatures, etc. It's a 2 mana dork, which sucks, but 2 mana dork with a 4 butt outside of that slice ain't getting killed. So this thing's going to stick on the board even with a Bowmaster out there, which is great, and something that a lot of us have started to consider, like cutting the Llanowar, the Findhorn, the Elvis Mystic, and instead running Delighted Halfling and any of the other ones that have at least a 2 butt. Yeah, and this being a 4 butt, it's not going to die. Also, people aren't going to waste interaction on this. They're just not. It's a mana dork. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, we're essentially in the Donk meta, right?
Right. Well, it's kind of getting that way, and then Sir Mix-a-Lot would be so happy to be playing Magic right now, because
he's jamming Magic.
He cannot lie about them big butts. But so I mean, it's just a green mana dork, standard fare. But if you happen to have a 4 drop, and if your commander just happens to already have a 4 butt or a 4 power, great, this is automatically going to be 4 extra mana. But notably, can Eternalize, so you can accidentally mill this, accidentally discard this to something, whatever. It just died because you blocked something big with it, and then you pay 4 mana, you exile it, you make a token copy of it, and now it just taps for 4 automatically. So
this is good. Notably another one that can either go infinite with an Umbral Mantle if you have another 4 butt or a 4 power creature, tap for 3, untap for whatever I think is tap for 4 and tap for 3. Yeah. Or if you have enough mana, you can activate this, it grow itself, tap it, grow itself, and boom, there you go. So being another combo piece with Umbral Mantle is not too bad either.
This is a good direction for mana dorks to be going, even if they are costing you more than the 1 green. It's still just because of Bowmaster meta, it's kind of an improvement. All right, so next one is Unstable Amulet. You want to read that one off?
Yep, it is 1 red and 1 colorless for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy, so there's your synergy there with the other one we previously talked about. And whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Unstable Amulet deals 1 damage to each opponent. You can also tap it, pay 2 energy, exile the top card of your library. You may play it until you exile another card with Unstable Amulet. So,
which leads you to believe that if you are in some sort of energy synergy, this is going to be reusable. And there are actually quite a few cards that were printed in this set that have a re-up or add to your energy pool effect. So it's not impossible for that to happen. But even if you were just like, I'm playing this Prosper deck, I don't give a fuck about energy, this still will ping anybody every time you cast that card off of exile from Prosper, also giving you the treasure that he already does anyway. And then it has this one clause where one time you can exile an additional card, and sometimes during a storm turn, that one card is all you need. Sir Kara's going to like this. The Obnix is going to like this.
Obnixilus loves this.
Yeah, anything
like every time you cast anything from Obnixilus from exile, you get another Obnixilus trigger right on top of it. So that's exactly. Gross. Also, we didn't talk about this, but thinking back on that other previous bolt, you can just pay 1 red for the, what the hell was that card called? Galvanic Discharge?
Yeah.
You could pay 1 red, target a creature, get 3 energy, and pay 0. Deal 0 damage to that creature. You're left with 3 energy, so boom, you have this and that in the deck, and it's another way to go a little deeper with energy right there.
Yeah, it could be just that if that's what you wanted to do. Or again, just hit the 1 drop and have 2 energy, or hit the 2 drop, have 1. There's lots of different ways to use it. And energy, for those who maybe weren't around during Kaladesh when it was first introduced, energy is actually a counter that is applied to the player. So much like poison counters. And those are, I think, the only 2 counters that we have that affect players only.
Oh, hell, I can't even remember. It sounds right.
I think those are the only... Anyhow, point being, I found this synergy just recently. The card All Will Be One from the set, All Will Be One, isn't it a 5-mana enchantment that says basically anytime a counter is put on permanent, it deals that many damage to whatever target you want. So just dumb shit like this synergizes with that. So if you are running a bunch of different energy things, you could potentially just be playing a control list. And on top of, like, if you were playing, something that's running like a Mayhem Devil or anything else that has those sacrificial effects and this and that, like, all these effects can kind of pile up to a point where you're able to remove 2 drop here, 3 drop there, this, that, the other thing. So yeah, there's some other synergies that are out there that maybe people haven't thought about. So energy is a weird mechanic. So next one is an interesting little stacks piece that I think Urza and other decks like it are going to love. It just happens to be playable in anything because it is a colorless thing. It's Winter Moon. You want to read that one off for us?
Yep, Winter Moon. 2 colorless artifact. Players can't untap more than 1 non-basic land during their untap steps.
It's very similar to all these stacks pieces that are all artifacts that can be played in any deck, but also are symmetrical, so can kind of fuck you. This one, Urza probably likes less than Winter Orb, because Winter Orb has the tap clause. If it's tapped, it doesn't do its effect, so he can tap it in response to his moving to his turn, upkeep, whatever, and then he can still untap all of his lands. It's not going to see play in a fuck ton of decks because it's a stacks piece. It's only going to see play in stacks decks, but certain stacks decks will like having this additional effect.
Could be good. Could be bad. Who knows?
I don't run the orbs generally because I always feel like because of their symmetrical nature, I don't like how much they hurt me, and I don't like playing around them when I play against them. But I have seen enough decks like Derevi and Urza and whatever to break parity on these kinds of effects, and that's why they're good. But yeah, it's not going to see a ton of play, but it was interesting enough.
Sure.
Next one is also cute. It's basically REB or BEB. It's Null Elemental Blast. It's the colorless version of REB, which is weird because REB like targets blue stuff, and the blue Elemental Blast targets red stuff. And in this case, it is following along with a theme that colorless spells tend to target colored things. Like there's that weird like 7 mana Scour from Existence, I think it is, like 7 mana, like wipe the board of anything that's colored. So yeah, it's a 1 colorless, and it does have to be colorless to play it. For an instant, says choose 1, counter target multicolored spell, or destroy target multicolored permanent. Same exact verbiage as Red Elemental Blast and Blue Elemental Blast, but it just targets multicolored. This isn't going to see a ton of play. I think that this goes in Liberator, for sure. That's about the only cEDH viable colorless deck we see these days, but prior to that, the old Kozilek used to see some play because of his counter ability on the commander, and this would also just go right in there. It gives an additional interaction piece to a colorless deck, and I guess if you were on like mono white, this could potentially actually see play in the sense of like maybe you can counter stuff. I mean, it's better than Mana Tithe, right? Like, isn't it? Maybe not. I don't know. It's not good. It's cute, like I said. I just wanted to talk about it because it was a unique new thing, and that was pretty much all I had to say.
Yeah, I think countering commanders would be the only relevant thing in white because you're playing Swords to Plowshares over this or Path all day, every day. Because other than creatures, what's the relevant multicolored permanents you're going to run into?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the same argument as like, why do we play REB in mono red or like low color red decks that aren't on blue? Because we want to have that gotcha moment. But yes, everybody's on blue, so blowing up blue permanents makes sense, and that's why Blue Elemental Blast and Hydroblast have kind of become a little more played, because people are trying to shut off breaches and docksides and things that Red has gotten over the last couple years. But again, it was cute, and I just wanted to mention it, and that's really all I have to say about it. Next one up is Copy Land. What is that?
It is 2 colorless and a blue. It's an enchantment. You may have Copy Land. Boy, it's a cleverly named one, this one. Enter the battlefield as a copy of any land on the battlefield, except it's an enchantment in addition to its other types. That's you're basically looking to copy a Cradle, probably.
We had a hard time thinking of other like lands that are out there that like you really want to copy. The only reason I put this one on the list too, it's another cute card that we have not. This is a unique effect. The only other land out there that copies a land is Thespian Stage, and it's only copies your own land. This can copy any land. The issue is that it stays an enchantment, so still feeds Dockside. That sucks. But if you're getting a Gaia's Cradle, great. The problem is that if you're in green, you're already running your own Cradle and your own Crop Rot and whatever, so you're probably already going to be able to get it anyway. And if you're in any other color, getting the Gaia's Cradle doesn't help you that much because you're essentially just tapping it for colorless mana. Yes, that's something. It's not nothing, but yeah, this is going to see play in some decks. In casual, you might be able to hit that Dark Depths and get your own Merit Lodge, but like it could copy an Emergence Zone, I guess, in a pinch. Like I really don't know.
And such. I don't know. Yeah. I don't think this one will see much play, but hey, we've been surprised before.
I just like unique stuff, and that's why I wanted to talk about it. Next one you put on here, so I'll let you read that as well. It's Ripples of Undeath.
Ripples of Undeath. It's 1 black and 1 colorless for an enchantment. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, middle 3 cards. Then you may pay 1 colorless and 3 life, or 1 generic, and 3 life. If you do, put a card from among those cards into your hand. So it's kind of a mono black Sylvan library that also fuels your graveyard for Reanimator decks and or weird synergies with stuff like the Master Transcendent, etc.
I like it a lot for my Evelyn deck, which is a World Gorger Dragon deck. Oops, I put my World Gorger in the bin, and then at some point, oops, I put Animate Dead in my hand for 1 and 3 life. Not terrible, and you don't have to. You can just mill the cards and not give a shit, so a lot of the time, it's not going to kill you unless you go hard on it. It's probably a little bit better than Bob, because it doesn't just hit you for like CMCs over and over again, which is nice. There have been other cards that have been printed that have similar sort of effects that are played, so I don't see why this wouldn't be. I like it for Wool Gorger or Reanimator decks especially.
It does get you closer to threshold for your
and
Cabal pits and Cabal rituals and such, so it's not bad.
Next one up is Party Thrasher. This is another one of your ads, so go ahead and read it.
There we go. Party Thrasher. Oh boy. 1 red and 1 colorless. A lizard wizard. That's fun to say. It's a 1/4.
I didn't even see that the first time. That's fucking so stupid.
It's a 1/4. Non-creature spells you cast from exile have Convoke. And at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may discard a card. If you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library, then choose one of them. You may play that card this turn. Huge butt again. We're kind of seeing like in a Orcish Bowmaster meta, they're trying to shift to putting some bigger butts on these things. Again, Sir Mix-a-Lot shout out. Being a wizard, super relevant, and just it's another card advantage engine in red.
Yeah, so this is again another Circara, Prosper, Obnix sort of card. The thing that throws me off about it is that it's non-creature spells have Convoke in red. It's just like, how many if you're in a Spellslinger deck, you're not gonna have any fucking creatures for this to work. Even my Prosper list, yes, it has creatures, but like a lot of the time, you've got Prosper out and maybe like 1 or 2 other creatures at most. So like, yes, that's additional mana, but then like also Prosper's a good blocker, but 90% of the time you're swinging with your other stuff because it's a face breaker or whatever. So like, I don't know. It feels the convoke part, like, it's a great addition to being able to do that. I think this really finds a home in like a Groll deck where you are gonna, or a Goblin deck where you're gonna have a bunch of Goblin tokens. And you're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, tap all these fucking Goblins, cast this shit for fucking free, basically.
You mean not in a Lizard Wizard deck? I mean, I kind of like the Convoke because it basically turns itself into a mana dork, which is kind of
yeah.
nice.
I mean, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that like it feels weird on a red card that it's encouraging spell slinging and not creatures. It's kind of counterintuitive in that sense. But there's lists out there that are going to use this for sure.
I wonder if it'll see any play in like a Prosh deck where you cast Prosh and make 6 mana dorks basically in this instance. I don't know,
that feels like the deck where it has a home. And like I said, like, or Goblin decks, like this feels good in Krenko, even though that's not seeing cEDH play. Like Krenko just shitting out all these Goblin tokens, and now you're just casting all your spells for whatever the red mana cost is.
Yeah,
and that's
big weird red stuff. Yeah, maybe
it seems all right. Maybe Magda. I don't know. Magda's
maybe
got
Winota.
creatures.
It's card advantage engine. And
actually, Magda might be the answer because Convoke says tap this shit to make that reduced and also make treasure tokens. So now you're just getting a bunch of free. I think we just solved it. I think that's a Magda card. Maybe.
I couldn't have been a damn dwarf wizard. Oh well.
Because that doesn't sound as cool as Lizard Wizard.
Not wrong, buddy. You're not wrong.
All right, next one up is Wrath of the Skies, which you wanted to put on here. I am not high on this card, but we will discuss. Good.
So this one, it might be a card waiting for the proper home, but it's 2 white and X sorcery. You get X energy, and then you may pay any amount of energy. Destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with mana value less than or equal to the amount of energy paid this way. 2 big things here. One, it's a wrath for not just creatures. You can wipe mana rocks, you can wipe enchantments, heuristic studies, mystic remoras, blah blah blah. It's also just a huge energy spell. If you pay 2 and X and you pay 0, you can pop all the 0 drops and get a butt ton of energy. So if a deck comes along that can utilize a crap ton of energy, this might be a card for it. And it's also tunable with Spellseeker. So hey, there you go.
Ever since Winds of Abandon got printed, like I haven't seen a white wrath that I've been overly happy with. I even like Damn better than this, but that obviously you have to be an Orzhov at least. But yeah, it's just being able to board wipe the additional things outside of creatures is pretty good, but at the same rate, like Cycrift is just better. Like, yes, they're gonna recast the shit, but like it gets rid of everything right now, and then you do what you need to do. But yeah, energy. Energy is a fucking weird thing. Like, they made the mistake of printing energy into standard initially, and that's why they didn't do it with Fallout or this. Like, that's purely not legal in standard. So they learned from that mistake. Energy is kind of a busted additional resource for casting things, doing things, etc. But it's still not there to where I'm like, I want to play this just so I can pay my entire board's worth of mana and just get a bunch of energy back, because then I'm going to use energy for something better. And even then, I probably wouldn't play a spell like this anyway to bank energy. There's got to be other better options.
Yeah,
so.
It's a weird one. I mean, there's a world I think you could pay 2 white and just destroy all 0 drops, right? I mean, like, that's sure. I don't know if that works. I think that works. You could pop all the treasures on the board. I don't know if that's relevant. I mean, again, this one might not ever see any play, or it might be a real banger if someday there's the proper energy payoff as well. So, anywho, that's why it's an honorable mention, not necessarily one that we'll see play for sure, but we'll see.
This next one's definitely going to see play. It's the Volatile Stormdrake. I'm also still not sure how to evaluate this card, but Kirk's high on it, so go ahead, read it off.
So I like it. It's 1 blue and 1 for a Drake. It's a 3/2 flyer with hexproof and hexproof from activated and triggered abilities. When Volatile Stormdrake enters the battlefield, exchange control of Volatile Stormdrake and target creature an opponent controls. If you do, you get 4 energy, then sacrifice that creature unless you pay an amount of energy equal to its mana value. So, if you steal something that's a CMC 4 or mana value 4 or less, you can pay that energy and keep it. Otherwise, this is 1 blue and 1. You swap it for another creature an opponent controls, you get 4 energy, and you destroy that creature. or sacrifice it. Is it destroy or sacrifice? Sacrifice. There you go. So it's not even destroy. I like this because unlike Gilded Drake, you can remove a stacks piece. Granted, we're not in a stacks meta right now so much, but if you want to play a Gilded Drake and you don't want to steal a Collector Roof that's stopping you from going off and winning, you can sure as hell kill it. So like Kinnan decks, I don't know if Kinnan's on Gilded Drake. I haven't played Kinnan in ages. But they would much rather play something like this, I think, where they can remove a relevant stacks piece like a Collector Roof or some of the other decks that need to stop any of the one spell per turn creatures that they keep freaking printing for a while there. This is removal for those. So
I think your argument here kind of helps me process it a little bit because I've been removing Gilded Drake from most of my lists. I actually don't think I have it in any list anymore because there's just been other things that have been printed that just are more effective. And as much as I would like to steal a thing, giving somebody a 3/3 flyer half the time is bad. Especially if you're stealing the thing and you're on Nas and now they're just beating you in the face for 3 every turn. That might be a mistake, but I'm not really running it as much anymore. And in that regard, this might be slightly improved in the sense that, yes, it's a 3, it's not a 3/3, it's a 3/2, but it has that hexproof from abilities. So there are things like the Bowmasters that this can't be hit by, so you can still just keep beating their face with no, you're giving this away, so they can just... Actually, that's bad. I just talked myself out of that. That's bad. I can't remove this fucker when it's coming at me, but
it also can't be removed by some weird Bowmaster shenanigans in response to try and stop the swapping. And I like this because you can tutor it with the white recruiter of the guard, right? The nice thing is, as they keep printing more and more clones, what sucks is if you play a Gilded Drake and you steal something, and then the next a-hole plays a clone, copies your Gilded Drake, and steals the thing you wanted, right? Or like, the powerful thing on the board, right, etc. This one being able to just also be a removal spell when you need to kill something that you don't want on the battlefield is pretty damn great.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to, is that might be the thing that makes it better than the Gilded Drake, is just because it is sort of removal.
Plus, I mean, there's a world where you steal a dockside, it dies, it sacrifices, then hey, now it's in the grave, so you can reanimate the damn thing with your reanimate.
I don't think it's bad, and my issue again was just that I've been cutting Gilded Drake, so I'm like, why would I put this in? And it does have bigger upside than Gilded Drake itself, but also has some bigger downsides too, in the sense of can't be targeted by certain things. So I don't know. I think it's going to see play, and I think as time goes on, we're going to figure out whether or not it's actually as good as we think it is. So that's the end of our honorable mentions. Now we're moving into kind of the list. We have a little bit of a precursor here just to talk about some lands, because there's a bunch of NDFCs in here, and a couple other honorable mentioned sort of lands as well. That we wanted to talk about. So first one up is Witch Enchanter. This is one of the MDFCs. It's a creature human warlock 2/2 for 3 and a white. And when it ETBs, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Otherwise, it has on the backside its Witch Blessed Meadow. And as it ETBs, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it ETBs tapped. So it's just like the mythic MDFCs we got back in, what was that, Zendikar, the last Zendikar set? Or the one before it, a couple years back, like Shatterskull Smashing and Agadim and blah, blah, blah. So having the ability to pay life to bolt yourself to have a land come in untapped is always good. And then in this case, it's a creature. In some cases, they're spells, so there are those weird clauses where you can tutor up a spell or tutor up this or that and then get it to use it as a land, which is a nice little benefit if you are mana screwed, and a little way to fix yourself. This card is basically Lauren of the Third Path, but it costs 1 generic more, but doesn't have the clause of being a land as well, because Lauren is the same thing, but it's 2-1, and it's the same sort of body type, ETB, destroy artifact or enchantment. However, also has that weird draw clause that can fuck up a Thassa's win, or otherwise any other win where forcing a draw will kill them. But I find that I'm already thinking about, 1-for-1ing this, Lauren out for this. There are reasons why you would maybe want to keep Lauren, particularly if your deck cares about legendaries, or you have ways to tutor legendaries, like in Captain Sisay or whatever. outside of that, this feels like just a better version. It does, again, cost 1 more mana, but also is mana fixing and removal when you need it. So it won't kill a 1-ring, but it'll kill a lot of other stuff that you might want to get rid of. So
Yeah, for sure. Like the nice thing about a lot of these too is if you have a deck where your lands in deck matter. So for Francisco's the one that comes to mind for me, right? Like, sure, you think you want to surveil or whatever the hell the mechanic is and reveal a top card library if it's a land that goes to your hand, but a lot of times in Francisco decks you don't want a lot of lands because you're doing some Agatha's Soul Cauldron, Walking Ballista combo nonsense. So you want to flip in a non-land. So these help in that instance. They're also like there's 2. I think there's 2 for every color. There's 2 green, 2 black, 2 red, etc. Right. So the nice thing too, like for the blue ones particularly, they're blue cards in hand, so you can pitch them to force. I know I say that a lot, and sometimes I say it in jest. And this time I seriously mean it. Yeah, it's super relevant. For all of them, they're a colored permanent in your hand for a Chrome Mox, right? So you play a land, and you can also play a Chrome Mox and put this under the Chrome Mox, exile it to the Chrome Mox, you know what I mean? And pseudo mana ramp, whereas if it was just a land, you'd have to play it.
Notably, this is tutorable by Imperial Recruiter and Recruiter of the Guard, and can be mana fixing for you if you need it. So
yeah, so they have a huge upside. They have downsides.
It's also a human. If it's in a Winota deck, it can potentially get a buff from Rick or other things that buff humans.
Can be flipped into and played, right? So yeah, that's huge. I mean, they all have their upside. Like I think there's a good ones. I think in literally all colors, I think all of them are feasible in the right deck. The green ones, the blue ones, the black ones, the white ones, the red ones. They all have a home, and it'll just depend on your deck and what you're playing them in. But they're all very good. I will say I think all of the mono-colored ones are great. There is a cycle in this entire set of ETB tapped dual-colored lands that have a spell or creature effect, I think, on the other side. And from what I've seen, there's like one that's the blue-black one's a maybe, but most of them will probably not see any play. Whereas all of these bolt lands
we're not talking about them at all.
Yeah, all of the bolt lands have potential. I mean, there's green removal, there's green draw, there's blue bounce, there's blue protection, misdirection type stuff. There's black removal, there's black grave hate. They're all good. So that's why we kind of lumped them all into this one little category. So I don't know if you want to run through them all. Like
let's run through them real quick. Yeah, so Sinking the Supers, one of the blue ones.
Yeah, it's 2 blue and 1 instant. Return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. So it's a pseudo counterspell and stack. It puts it back in their hand, even non-counterable stuff. And or a bounce spell. You bounce a stacks piece, you go off, right? There's
Boggart Trawler. It's a 3/1 goblin for 2 and a black. When it ETBs exile target player's graveyard, that can be super relevant if they've already got a stacked graveyard. They're a breach player. They're a reanimator player. You just get rid of whatever. Grave hate is important, and we don't play enough of it, unfortunately, because there's not a lot of it that's really viable. And I feel like this just straight up, if you were already trying to play Bojuka Bog, which is arguably a shitty land to be playing in cEDH, but it is one of the only sort of effects like that, that just straight up hoses one guy's graveyard. This is a good replacement for that because it's an MDFC on the back. You bolt yourself, it still taps for black. It's also a goblin, so if you are on Goblin Matron, you can tutor this up and get your land fixing. And just being able to exile a whole graveyard can be game warping, but also could just be nothing if you get an early game and there's no graveyard.
Yeah, it's just the land, right? I mean, 3/1 body could be relevant too if you're on a Tymna deck or something where the damage could add up. You can't crop rotation into this like you go to Bojuka Bog to get somebody, but it is what it is.
But nobody's playing Bojuka Bog, so this is just better than that.
It's been a minute since I've run into it. Another one, Disciple of Freyalise, 3 green and 3 for a 3/3 elf druid, so creature types relevant again. When it ETBs, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the creature's power.
It's life's legacy, essentially, on a body. Also tutorable if you can tutor for an elf. Also, just a bolt land that is fixing. You can use Worldly Tutor to get this to make sure that your next land or your next turn has a land drop, or you're gonna draw a fuck ton of cards because you're gonna sacrifice a thing. I think this is slam dunk and shit like Selvala and whatever, because they're gonna be playing some of those big ass creatures like the Dreadnought and whatnot, and you're just gonna draw 12 fucking cards and gain 12 life. Like, it's 6 mana, sure, but Selvala is tapping for 12. And then you're sacking, gaining 12 life, drawing 12 cards. You still got 6 mana floating. shit's getting real. When
Yeah,
that
it'll
happens.
pop off and do something. And like you said, worst case scenario, it's a bolt land, which is just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in decks like you're not going to play these in Adnaz decks,
No.
but in non-Adnaz decks, they're all worth looking at. I mean, there's the other, yeah,
I
they're
mean,
all
we are
good.
in mid-range hell right now too, so Adnos is kind of taking a little bit of a back seat. It's still there. It's always gonna be there, but it's not like the number one most aggressive thing that everybody's doing. A lot of people are
Sure.
sitting back and sandbagging a bit. So
Sure, and it's got some new toys in this set too, which we'll get to. So, anywho, that's kind of the cycle. The MDFCs, they're all good. They're all worth looking at. Some
you
of
got the
them,
one more. The hydroelectric specimen is the
oh yeah, I
last
forgot
one
about
we
that
were
little
gonna
guy,
touch
the
about.
hydro electric
This one's
specimen.
2 and a blue for a 1/4, another big butt. It has flash, and when it ETBs, you can change target instant or sorcery with a single card to it. So it is a spell skite, but with flash. So like they don't see it coming, and also just a big body if you need it. And then it's a bolt land. So that one I didn't even see. Kirk brought it up. It's pretty good. Pretty good. And then otherwise, a couple other lands that we just wanted to talk about for like 2 seconds. One is snow-covered wastes. We've had wastes for a long time. They are the only quote-unquote colorless basic land that exists. They came out with Zendikar or whatever with Eldrazi stuff. They are the basic land if you are playing like Liberator, which is basically the only competitive colorless commander that's viable right now. But this opens up the ability to play Arkham's Astrolabe in those decks, because that requires a snow mana, and it is just an ETB draw card with a mana filter, which doesn't fucking matter, but it is something new, a new option for those sorts of decks. And I think you brought up another card that can
One of my
work with
pet my pet cards that I absolutely love is Mouth of Ronom, which is like a ETB tapped or ETB untapped land that you can pay 4. I think it's 4 a colorless or 4 a snow mana and tap it to sack it and deal 4 damage to target creature. I don't know. I play the damn thing all the time. You'd think I'd know it better, but yeah, it's another one.
Yeah, not a lot to say there. It was just the first time they printed a snow-covered waste, so it's interesting. The other one is coming out of one of the commander decks. This one's super interesting. It's Talon Gates of Madara. It's a gate, so if you're playing gate synergies, that's also something, but I don't know any cEDH decks that are, but if you're in casual, and you're doing gate stuff, cool. But it does tap for colorless, and then you can also filter it, pay 1 and tap it to add a mana of any color. And it also has four colorless for generic. Put it from your hand onto the battlefield. So it does have kind of a pseudo channel. It's basically like a secondary Otawara, so to speak. Otawara bounces. This phases out when it ETBs up to 1 target creature phases out. When I first read it, I didn't really realize that it was any target creature. I was thinking it was your own. I'm like, why would you want to play a land and phase out your own creature? Doesn't make sense, right? In this case, you play this as your land for turn. You phase out somebody's Drannith. You play your commander. Their Drannith comes back at their upkeep. Hopefully they're the player after you. If not, maybe you just opened everybody up. But in some instances, you only opened up one guy or nobody because he's the guy after you, and then Drannith comes back down and it's still there. It could also, phase out a Consecrated Sphinx or something else, Sheoldred. There's all kinds of stuff that you might want to target with this that it's going to be good for you. But then just being able to do it at instant speed for 4 mana, yes, it's 4 mana, which is kind of a lot, but sometimes that's all you need, You got to phase out this thing because it's going to be a combo piece. Phase out the Heliod so that the Walking Ballista comes down and does fuck all, right? So I think this is going to be it's a cute piece of interaction and disruption that hasn't existed on land before, and it being able to be played from your hand as a gotcha moment is great, and then otherwise just being on the field as a land that can filter, also not terrible.
I could see like a kind of a similar thought process would be like a command beacon, where a lot of times you're playing that to put your commander straight to your hand by sacking it. It also taps your colorless, so you can kind of get away from the can't cast from command zone Drannith Magistrate effect. A lot of times, I mean, there are other times you play it because your commander gets killed a lot. You're putting it back in your hand, I suppose, or you're doing some weird food chain loops with Titania, blah blah blah. But this one kind of can kind of fill that role. Exile or not exile, phase out Drannith, play your commander, but it also has the ability, like you said, to filter mana, so you can do a little bit of mana fixing, and it can do like that pseudo spell / channel type ability So I could see this and seeing some play. I'm not sure how good it is. I'm not sure which decks are going to try it, but I won't be surprised if I run into this for a while, and I won't be surprised if it does work. So
I mean, to me, there's no real downside for running it. If you're in a Tainted Pact mana base, there's no reason why you can't run this. It being a colorless land foremost is hurtful in some ways, but like it still has that color fixing in the sense that like if you have a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt, you can now make that 3rd mana you need to cast your commander, so that's not bad. I think the phasing out is obviously that's the highest part of it, and this is the kind of land that you sandbag in your hand until you need to use it. If you can't find a reason to use it, as your land drop, you hold on to it as interaction. Unless you're already on a fuck ton of colorless lands, most people are running the Ancient Tombs, some people are running City of Traders. Like, there are quite a few potential, like, colorless lands you might be running, so maybe this is too many, but I'm going to try it out. I think it fits into pretty much any cEDH list as long as you are able to justify, like, losing a colored pip.
I'm not sure of any deck that would utilize it right now, but who knows? There could be some weird, like, infinite blink your land, ETB land type weird shenanigans where you just phase out everybody's creatures constantly too. Who the hell knows? It's a weird game.
I'm sure there's
People
some kind of fucking
shit,
combo that could be figured out with this for sure. And if it doesn't exist now, it may be coming down the pipeline. So yeah, I would pay attention to this. I'm sure we're going to see this one seeing some play.
And it commits a crime when it ETBs because it targets an opponent if you want. So
there you go. There's more potential interaction. So we kind of included all those as like part of the list in the sense that like they were all worth talking about. Our actual list is at 9. So we've got a few here that we think are guaranteed going to see some play in multiple decks. Again, your mileage may vary, but first one is Strict Serenade. This is a instant for 1 blue, and it says counter target artifact, creature, or planeswalker spell. Its controller creates a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. This is Swan Song for all the other things the Swan Song doesn't hit, because Swan Song's what? Instant, sorcery, or enchantment. This
Except
is artifact.
For battle. None of them get battles, damn it.
Well, I mean, like, we literally see one battle ever, and it's very rare that you even see it cast. I have that battle in so many decks, and I've cast it like 2 or 3 times total, so I know there was a blue one that was kind of playable, and like maybe 1 or 2 others that were sort of okay and fringe lists, but like most of the battles are not good, so who gives a shit about battles? Also, battles can just be countered by whatever thing that says counter target spell. So this, obviously this is going to hit your 1 rings and any other artifact that's going to get played. If you're not on the play and you've got a gemstone and this is in your hand, this can fuck somebody's turn 1 because it can hit their mana dork or it can hit whatever fucking rock they're playing. This is a mental misstep in that regard where it just fucks up early turns when people are trying to ramp. Planeswalker spells, not happening all that much, but there are a number of decks that run 3 fairy. There's Tavesh out there. There's Jeska out there. There are planeswalkers that it's going to hit. It's not going to always be dead on planeswalkers, but artifact creature counters. We don't run a lot of creature counters as is because it's kind of a weak thing to do, but because of the modality of this, it's worth. And countering a dockside to give somebody a bird feels good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Stern Scolding in your list, this is probably a strict upgrade by a wide margin.
Strict upgrade to anything that says counter target creature spell. Period. Just better than. So, if you are running a creature counter, this is better. If you're not running any, this might be the one to run. I don't think this is going to be a slam dunk 100% included in every single blue list, but I think if you're on heavy control or just want to have the dual coverage of this and Swan Song, I think if you're running Swan Song, you probably run this just to have the coverage of both. But
see, again, I don't think you do. I think different decks want this. I mean, I think I'm running Swan Song almost 100% of the time over this. This one, I can see it in decks that you're really scared of a stacks piece. You want to stop because your stacks pieces a lot of times are creatures or like a Null Rod, Curse Totem, artifact type crap, right? So if you're wanting to stop those, this would be probably pretty great there. If you're on low color,
probably really good in Urza to just stop things that might stop you from doing what you want to do.
Right? Like
I don't know. Like I don't know that I put this in every deck, like I said, but I
maybe
also
even like a cannon might play it. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I think it's good in a number.
I'm gonna try it in Talion because I think it's viable enough to try there. I don't think you're gonna play it in your 4-color blue decks and such because there's better things to do. I think it will
Yeah,
see
I think when
some
you
play.
get to
I'm not
once
sure
you
how
get
high
to
I am
4
on this.
plus, 4 plus, I agree with you. 4 plus probably not because like offer got printed. Like offer is just really good. But 1 mana counter spells that hit more than one thing are at a premium, and there aren't too many of them. So I think that this, like I said, heavier control list, draw go decks. This is a slam dunk.
That's fair.
Next one's Necrodominance. This one I'm not super high on, but read it off. Let's talk
It's
about it.
3 black mana for a legendary enchantment. Skip your draw step. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay any amount of life. If you do draw that many cards, your maximum hand size is 5. If a card or token would be put into your graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So this is a super fixed version of Necropotence, and it's a really stinker version of it. I mean, it's got the advantage of being legendary, so you can tutor it up if you're into tutoring legends with like cEDH or something, I suppose. But
Yep.
other than that, the fact that you draw the cards, they're not set aside and put in your hand, means you're Bowmaster bait.
You're feeding
bait.
that. You're
Anyway,
feeding Consecrated Sphinxes. You're feeding
yeah.
anything that triggers off of you drawing cards. That is the biggest part for me. Also, max hand size set to 5. That's fucking dog shit. The rest of it is Necropotent. It's basically
the other part of
the
it is
same shit, but it's
all
like,
in every mode. It's worse because it's a replacement effect. Whereas Necropotence is a trigger. If you discard with Necropotence, it's a trigger to then exile from your grave. So if you're in Rogsai, which is the deck that's probably going to maybe try this card, we'll see that if there's a deck that's going to try it, I think that's it. So you discard with Necropotence, there's a trigger to exile, right? So if you do your end step, Necro for 25, cast your Born Upon the Wind, you can play everything instant speed, blah, blah, blah. You can then play your Underworld Breach, play your Lion's Eye Diamond, discard your whole damn hand with all those triggers to exile on the stack. You do your thing, you go off, you win, blah, blah, blah. This one's a replacement effect. They don't hit the grave, they just get straight exiled. I freaking hate that. So, and this one's also, if a card would be put in your graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. I think Necropotence only if you discard a card, it gets exiled.
I believe it's
as a
only
trigger.
discard.
It's just a super shitty version of Necropotence. I probably won't be playing it because I'm just not seeing a deck for it, but I'm sure Rogsai will give it a whirl and see what happens.
I'm of the same opinion. I think this card is dog shit. The reason we put it on the list is because it was super hyped. Everybody's been talking about it like, oh, it's the second coming. And every negative you just listed, I'm of the same opinion. And I actually had an argument recently with some people when I was playing. So my very first official actual top end cEDH deck was Zur the Enchanter. OG Zur from way back in the day. Used to be the Boogeyman, was one of the best decks in the whole format prior to Partners being printed. As soon as Partners got printed, he kind of took a back seat, but he was still viable. He's always been viable. He's still viable. He's gotten better because of cards like Born Upon a Wind and, just all the white, blue, black cards that have been printed in the last year or two that have just fucking pushed Esper into a place where it's almost better than Grixis in some cases. Not because, Breach and yada yada, but close. Regardless, somebody told me that Zur is still not great and this, that, the other thing, and I'm just like, bro, I got receipts. Zur is fucking crushing it right now. And they were like, oh, Necrodominance might be the thing that pushes over the top. What? This doesn't even work with fucking Yawgmoth's Will. It doesn't do the thing that Yawgmoth's Will wants to do with Necropotence. Because, again, it's a replacement effect. So this is just like Rest in Peace. The shit just disappears as soon as anything happens. Yeah, it's just bad. But we put it on the list because people are hyped about it. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to figure out a way that this is good. But I don't know why this is a mythic. I don't know why this was printed. Honestly, why was this printed? It's just
because anytime you figure out a way to trade life for cards, there's some way. I mean, sure, it does suck to Bowmasters, but you Dark Ritual this out, you pay 25 life, you draw 25 cards, it's your end step, you might have it. I mean, that's why this card is busted.
I think in conjunction with Angel's Grace or something that's just you can't lose the game, or Phyrexian Unlife, maybe, stuff that's just hey, you can't die for having 0 or less life, and you just pay your entire life and but that's also risky. it just feels bad. And like I said, I only put it on the list because people were so hyped for it, and I'm just like, I don't understand. And maybe there's something we're missing here. If you know what it is, put it in the comments. We like to hear from you, but I don't see it. And honestly, this would have been an honorable mention if it wasn't for the hype. Next up, birthing ritual. Go.
Now, this is one you're higher on than me, I think, right?
I'm not even high on it. It was just kind of another card that was hyped. This is the reason I put some of these cards in the list is because people were like, this is fucking amazing.
You know, right, I don't think this one's good either, so I'll let you run with this one.
All right, sure. It's 1 and a green for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature, look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may sack a creature. If you do, you may put a creature card with mana value X or less from among those cards onto the battlefield where X is 1 plus the sacked creature's mana value. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. So it's kind of a fixed birthing pod, but like essentially you go to your end step, this triggers, and you get to look at the top 7 cards of your library. And you get to look at that before you sack anything. So you basically get to look at your 7 cards and go, I have a thing that is X plus 1 that I want. And then you sack the thing and you put the thing on the battlefield and Bob's your uncle. It is a nice way to dig. It is a thing that could potentially like just kind of do the whole birthing pod like or Yasan chain up the chain to whatever, but it's very random. I don't think I'm running this anywhere. But people were hyped on it, and it does have a high ceiling in the sense that like if your curve is pretty well balanced, like you might be able to boop 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 every turn, but it's a lot of variance. It's very much like power balance. It's a very like hard to evaluate because it's either gonna do it or it's gonna do jack shit. However, you are getting to look at 7 cards every turn, and if none of those work for you, they go on the bottom, and you get to do that every single turn as long as you control a creature. So, it's only 2 mana, so you're not paying extra like you would with Birthing Pod. You're not paying extra like you would with Yasan. So it's kind of free Birthing Pod or Yasan. So like, it's got a little bit of an upside there. It's kind of like, it's less Sylvan Library and more Miri's Guile, where it's like, Miri's Guile is like, look at the top 3, put them back out in any order. Like, you kind of get that card selection, and in the right deck, you could potentially get a lot of value out of this, or at least look through your deck to find the things you actually want to find. But the problem is yes, okay, you looked at 7 cards, and you've got a 3, 4, and 2 drop, and the one thing that or like 3, 4, 5 drop, and the one thing on your board is a 1 drop, so you can't sack it to get anything. So it's too chaotic, but it feels like it might have some use, particularly if you can top deck manipulation. You could Worldly Tutor into whatever the fuck you want, kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. People are high on it.
This one feels like we should put it into considering because this card's trash. So my problem with it is it's only triggers in the end step, so you can't like abuse it with like a birthing pod and pod up the chain and just win. Pod for something, untap birthing pod, pod into the next thing, blah blah blah. It's also random. It's top 7. You also have to have a creature on the battlefield to sack. See, I think this card's trash.
I apologize. I happen to let hype on social media inform my decisions as to what I put at the top end of the set, and those were a couple of them, and that's where we're at. Let's move on to an actual good card. It's Flare of Duplication. Read that shit off.
I like this one a lot. So, Rograk's best friend, right? 2 red and 1, an instant. You may sacrifice a non-token red creature rather than pay this spell's mana cost. Copy target instant or sorcery. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this card exists in this list in cEDH because we have a 0 mana red commander that we can play, and it's gross. I mean, there are other commanders that will probably play this for sure, but because Rograk exists, makes this one great. You can win Counterspell Wars in red with this. You can copy relevant ad nauseas and such with this for free because of that commander. It's
Dualcaster Mage without being a body. So you can't recur it unless you're on Archaeomancer type stuff, but I mean it does the thing. And being able to potentially cast it for free makes it really good.
Of the entire set, I think this one is maybe the best because Rograk exists.
Any deck that's using Roger in the command zone and then like Cole, which also plays like the kobolds and shit that are zero drop creatures that can just be sacked. Being able to just play out something for free, sack it, and then cast this for free, fucking busted.
Yeah, I could even see Magda trying it. I mean, sometimes the little 1/1 red dwarves, sure, they're super important for getting Magda going, but are they as good as having a pseudo piece of counter magic and or a copy of demonic tutor type spell? I don't know, man. I wouldn't be surprised if they play it.
Yeah, being able to sack a creature to pay for a spell, pretty good. Speaking of, next one is the blue version, and these are the only two of the cycle we're going to talk about because they are the best. This one is Flare of Denial. It's 1 and 2 blue for an instant. You may sacrifice a non-token blue creature rather than pay the mana cost, and it's a counter-target spell. Which, it's not counter-target non-creature, or target creature, or target this, that, the other thing. It's just counter a fucking spell. And yes, you probably don't want to sack most of your blue creatures because they're going to be a Consphinx or a Fairy Mastermind or yada yada. But if it's a Spellseeker, who gives a fuck? You Spellseekered into something, and it's on the field, and now you sack it to counter a spell. That's great. It's amazing value. It's just as good as a Force of Negation or a Force of Will or whatever to a degree, because you have the same sort of like cast it for free clause. And the more of these cast it for free clauses we get, the more powerful the format gets.
For sure. I like this. I mean, it's just cancel's gone forever now because this card is just cancel plus, right?
Cancel hasn't been played in forever already, sure. but
this one also
if you're playing cancel, you're wrong. So stop
you're 100% wrong. Even in Baral, you're still wrong, which is another deck to can play with. But this one has a huge upside also in Thrasios, not Thrasios. Yeah, Thrasios. Thrasios can cast this by sacking Thrasios. Kinnan might try it because they can typically recast a Kinnan if they need to stop something that's going to lose them the game.
Thrasios in particular, because you're probably already like doing infinite mana shit, and then you're just like, sack my Thrasios to counter the spell that's countering me from winning, and then continue with my infinite mana loop and recast Thrasios and draw my deck anyway. And Kinnan decks, a lot of the times, are also on Thrasios because they can activate to get to Thrasios and then use Thrasios to draw their deck. So yeah, there's a lot of options, and also like fucking even Urza likes this because you just have whatever dumb blue creature that's out there that you just sack.
And we talked a little bit before too. Yuriko plays this probably, right? Like, they don't give a shit about sacking Yuriko. They can put it right back out for a black and a blue, and probably easier.
Even if it's not her, like I'm on my particular Yuriko list is on like Triton Shorestalker and other shit that's like a 1-drop 1/1 that's unblockable and that's just there purely to enable ninjutsu, and I don't fucking care about sacking that shit to counter a spell. Period. Because I'm trying to Doomsday and somebody's countering my shit, and I'm like, yeah, sack this unblockable fucker or sacrifice Yuriko because we don't care. We'll bring her back. Yeah.
And it's a 3-flip for Yuriko damage too. But another huge case where this card is going to be great is if you're going for Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, Tainted Pact wins, right? You cast the Thassa's Oracle, it resolves, the triggers on the stack, you try and pop off with your Demonic Consultation or Tainted Pact, they go to counter it. Hey, guess what? I can just fucking sack my Thoracle and cast this. It seems great, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you're not going to win...
Deck needed one more way to check that one, right?
Yeah. I mean... Honestly, that's probably the number one, like, fuck yes. Like, balls deep. This is amazing. Fucking Thassa's Oracle trigger on the sack Thassa's Oracle counter target spell that's trying to counter yours. Oh, wow.
Seems pretty fucking good, right?
I mean, the only time that sucks is when they hit you with that replicate spell we were talking about earlier, and you have to worry about 2 copies. Then you're fucked. But
yeah, fact.
All right, we got a couple more here. Let's wrap it up. So next one is Warden Soul Trader. Read that one off for us.
1 black and 2 colorless for a 3/3, 3 super relevant creature types: zombie, goblin, wizard, and it has pay 1 life, sacrifice another creature, create a treasure token. So this one, when it was spoiled, most people, or if you've been following along, thought, oh my god, Corvold got a new best buddy, right? Because makes treasures, sacks Dockside to put it in the grave so they can reanimate it. I like it for a lot of decks. I mean, that certainly is the case, but I also like it for decks like Chatterfang. If you're playing Chatterfang in cEDH, which I think is still cool, this can make more squirrels. If you have, lots of decks, Prosh might come back because of this. Make a bunch of 0/1
I think
kobolds, stack them up for
Prosh
treasures.
actually really likes this. Like,
Yeah, even like a Timna Dargo, because you could sack Dargo, make a treasure, recast him when you're doing your weird Dargo loops, and it's a relevant body. It's a 3/3, so it can jam when you're playing your Timna to draw cards with it. Like you said, Goblin Matron can find this. You can 2 mana cycle the step through to Wizard find this. I'm sure there's some zombie tutor I'm not thinking of that finds this. 1 black and 2 colorless, super easy to cast. Also, the huge thing about this that I like, and this is where we talked about a little bit earlier, this opens up a new Protean Hulk pile in Golgari? Black-green Golgari, yeah, good grief.
not even Golgari, it's just anything that's, green-black plus. Because we already have Naya, like Minsk and Rocco and some other things that play Hulk that have completely different lines that are actually way more effective with less dead cards than the black pile. The black pile always had Malira and Manticore and
Disciple of the Vault, and the sack
just,
out, and
just 2 to 3 dead cards that if you ever drew them, your Hulk pile was fucked and you hated life. And that's why I never played Hulk in those colors, because it was just... I did for a while. I played Hulk in Dina, I think, initially, and I ended up cutting it for the Acerak Alurin combo, because it was just like, this actually works, and if I draw anything of the Hulk pile in Dina, like, I'm just fucked.
Feels so bad. Yeah,
it's awful. So whereas, like, with the Naya ones, if you draw any of the Hulk pieces, you're just like, cool, now I Hulk for the other 2 pieces I need, plus Grand Abolisher, and go fuck yourself. Right.
It's a mini Marionette and a Gravecrawler, because this is a zombie, so you can sack Gravecrawler, create a treasure, cast it from your grave with the treasure you just made. So boom, you can loop Gravecrawler. So if you've got Zulaport Cutthroat, you've got Blood Artist, or you've got the mini Marionette Master thing, which will make treasures, which will deal damage to each opponent will lose life, and your tokens are going to make them lose life. I mean, this is just...
Also, notably, losing life gets around the 1-ring protection.
For sure.
So...
And the nice thing about this, like in exactly what you were talking about, is Lane. These are all cards that I'm fine drawing throughout the game. I don't. I'm not. They have super value. Excited.
They're not dead cards.
I'm not super excited to cast a Zulaport Cutthroat. Perhaps, maybe I am, because maybe I'm trying for an aristocrat loop anyway. Marionette Master. If I'm playing that and I'm just creating treasures and just randomly doming people for a bunch of damage, that's great. Their ad nauseas are going to be worse, etc. But if I'm, any of these pieces are so much better to draw than a lesser Masticore in the middle of a game, you're like, son of a bitch.
That Malera card, too, is just absolute dog shit. There's no fucking anything like, can't fucking add poison counters or something. Like, who gives a shit?
Does she stop energy? I need to look into that. Does she stop you from getting energy?
Maybe, but I just remember it's fucking, they were just bad cards, and that's why as soon as I figured out that Black Hulk loops fucking sucked, I was like, I'm off this. I will play anything. I'll play Chain of Smog with Witherbloom over that shit, because even though you can get blown the fuck out, so what? At least I'm not drawing dead cards.
Oh, for real. So that's why these are like, I really like this. I mean, this card is good in general. It'll probably see play in like Rakdos colored decks.
It's notably good in decks like I play the Master Duplicated or whatever the fuck it is, the Rakdos one, Myriad creature token. Like, it does have the clause to where like the legendary thing doesn't matter and they don't die, but like you can still sack them because you're going to make new ones every turn anyway, so you can sack them to make treasures for whatever you need. Yes, you're hurting yourself for some life, but maybe you got some other things that can gain you some life or whatever. If you're not on ad nause or whatever else that uses your life, you're going to be fine. So yeah.
Yep, and it also just lets you turn your opponent's creature removal into treasures for you. If they're blowing up your creature, you're like, 1 life, get a treasure. I think this card's good. I think it'll see some play for sure.
Next one is 6, which could technically be a commander, but 2/4 legendary tree folk for 2 and a green, has reach. Big butt again, so it can block mostly everything. It'll block a Crom, but it ain't killing a Crom, but like it'll block most like Drakes and other things. Whenever it attacks, you mill 3 cards, and then you can put a land card from among them into your hand. So it is sort of a weird mana fixing thing. Can keep you from missing your land drops. if this is your commander, you're probably going to be wanting to play like upwards of 40 lands just to make sure. But and then it says as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace, which is you can cast them from your graveyard by discarding a land and paying their cost. So it has kind of a built-in recursion. There's some situations where this is going to be really strong. There's other situations where maybe you're on Reanimator or World Gorger or whatever, and the mill is just helping you get to that. You're not going to miss your land drops, because if you are binning lands, you're going to be able to pull one back every turn. You also might consider being on, Ramanap or Crucible to make sure that you can hit those.
Where this one I think is really cool is post Adnaz. You play this in a black-green deck with Adnaz, all those land flips you turned into now are live in your hand. They're whatever's in your grave. Pitch a land, you can recur your Lotus Petal and get a bunch of extra mana. Pitch your land, recast your Demonic Tutor or whatever it is. So I think this is really sick in like an Adnaz deck. It's almost like a green version of Underworld Breach in a weird way for that.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, and this is really nice because it's
the only issue is that it's not like exile card. Well, no, yeah, because Breach is still pay the mana cost in exile card, so it is literally like green Breach.
Yeah, kind of. And the cool thing about this is you can just jam it out there and start swinging with it and get some value. Fill your grave for a Breach if you're on like a Jund Breach Adnaz style deck. Play this, start swinging, fill your grave. I think it's pretty decent. I think it's got a lot of potential. Plus, there are games where if you're in, we're in mid-range hell. You draw lands late game. You don't need extra freaking lands. You have something that's been killed earlier. Your Orcish Bowmaster is in your grave. Costs 2 damn mana. I'd much rather probably discard my land and play that than play my 6th land drop, for Christ's sake. So yeah. I think this card's pretty good.
Let's just move right on to the Shifting Woodland. This Perfect. Is the only land that we put in the list because it is probably the best land printed in the entire set. Despite the fact that those MDFCs are pretty decent, this is fucking crazy. There is a whole cycle of these, each color, all 5 colors, where they intertapped unless you control their color basic land. Well, not basic, but just basic or dual, whatever, is typing land.
Yeah, Forest, Island, Swamp, Mountain.
Yeah, plains, this enters the battlefield tap unless you control a forest. So as long as you've got a basic or any of the dual types that say forest, or a Yavimaya, notably, and it taps for green. It also has Delirium, which Delirium is, you can only activate if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard. So you need to have an instant, sorcery, land, creature, or any combination, including battle and blah, blah, blah.
Artifact, etc. Sure.
Yeah. For the Delirium cost, it's 2 and 2 green, and it becomes a copy of target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. So this is an example that Kurt said, like you could put Omniscience in your grave and then use this for 4 mana to copy Omniscience and then blah, blah, blah. But this applies to anything that's in your graveyard that's a permanent. So this can become a Hulk. This can become a Woolgorger Dragon. This can become a Dockside. This can become a Thassa's Oracle. This can become any fucking thing your heart desires that is a permanent card. So on a land, being able to just pay 4 mana and win the game, pretty fucking good. And all of the other ones do not compare any way, shape, or form to how much this can affect a game.
2 huge things stick out to me on this one. One, it's in the green with crop rotation. So crop rotation not only tutors this, but it puts an instant and land in your grave. So that's halfway to Delirium right there, right? And 2, it's 2 green and 2 colorless to activate. You can tap this to pay for its own ability. It's not 2 green, 2 colorless, and tap to activate, which I'm shocked.
That is notable. I didn't even notice that until you just brought it up. Yeah.
You look at a card like this and your brain naturally thinks, oh, it's 2 green, 2 colorless, and I probably have to tap the damn thing to become it. No. 2 green, 2 colorless do this. So, hello, food chain from my graveyard. Here I am on the battlefield as a land. That's just gross. It can become Underworld Breach from your graveyard. You played a Breach earlier, somebody countered it, somebody killed it with a Boseiju, blah, blah, blah. Boom. Hey, I can turn it into a freaking Underworld Breach. I can turn it into anything, like you said. I mean, it's super powerful. The ability to, Omniscience, maybe that's Magical Christmas Land, but hey, somebody's going to freaking do it. I guarantee it. You just watch. But, I mean, even being like, it can be a grinding station from your grave, and you can do your stupid grinding station stuff. I mean, the potential on this card is pretty bonkers. Or Emil, it can be Emil from your grave for your dockside bullshit. It can do all sorts of nuts stuff, and it's just a land. It can come into the land that will probably come into play untapped because you can fetch for Tropical Island, you can fetch for Taiga, you can fetch for Bayou,
The
whatever
only
you
time
need.
this comes in tapped is if it's the only land in your hand turn 1. Even then, you probably should be mulliganing because, like, this coming in tapped with a dork in hand is just not good play. This isn't gonna do shit for you early game. This is a mid to late game effect because you do have to build a delirium. But if you're on 6 or anything else where you're milling a bunch of shit, like, you're gonna get that delirium super fast, and then you're gonna have the option of whatever's in your grave to do it. It's until end of turn. And maybe that doesn't win you the game, but it's reusable. You can do this every fucking turn.
I won't be surprised to see this quite often turned into in an opponent's upkeep. Turn this into the Mystic Remora that you didn't pay for that's in your grave. Go, you take your turn, try and storm off. I've got a Mystic Remora now back. It's the turn before yours, and somebody's destroyed your Rhystic Study. Somebody's destroyed your One Ring. It's in the grave. Make this a copy of that.
Make it a copy.
On it.
Draw a card.
Don't lose any damn life, right? Like
where I think ideally this lands is like Hulk decks, because it's 4 mana, make a Hulk and then sack it, or it just dies at end of turn, and then you get your other pieces. Like, maybe that doesn't win you the game right there, but if you have Born Upon the Wind, maybe it does. Like, there's a lot of different scenarios where this is fucking busted. And
yeah, I think I won't be surprised to see this crop rotation put it into play and win over the top of somebody else a lot. I think that could absolutely happen.
This turns into your shitty ass Necro Dominance, or even better, a Necropotence, and then you just fucking win the game. Right?
Or then at the end of turn, if you pay a bunch of life, it goes away. But I think you'd still get the cards if you do it during your opponent's turn.
You would, but you would still have
at the
to.
end of your turn.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to discard the hand side until your turn. Yeah, like, wow, we fixed Necro. We fixed Necro Dominance. We've done it.
But notably, crop rotation puts 2 cards in the grave. Entomb is another example. You can entomb whatever you want it to become. That puts that card in the grave. That puts an instant in the grave. Chances are you probably got a land in the grave from one of your fetch lands. So then all you need is your Jeweled Lotus, your Lotus Petal, your creature that died. This may be an incentive to play creature like Mana Dorks with 1 butt, because sure, they're Bowmaster bait, but hey, I guess they're Delirium as well. So yeah, this card's nuts.
Let's just leave it at that. So we are down to our very last card. I'm gonna let you read this one off because you are hyped for it. I've played against it once, and it does seem pretty busted. Very hyped by the community, and the notably only real commander we put on the actual list, because it is probably the best. Even though I've brewed a couple other ones that I was more interested in, this was probably the one that's going to see the most play and is probably going to be, on the database. And it's Simic. Sure. It's Simic fucking bullshit. This is what we're here for. That's what everybody lives for. Here we go.
And this one is Nadu Winged Wisdom. 1 blue, 1 green, 1 colorless, or 1 generic. It's a 3/4 bird wizard legend. It has flying, and creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top of your card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. Each turn.
They did give it a limitation.
They did, but this ability is given to each creature you control. Not Nadu. Every single creature you control can be targeted
Lightning
twice.
Greaves just bounces amongst every creature twice, and you get like 15 fucking triggers.
Shuko is shot up in price because of this damn card. The one we mentioned earlier, the 3-drop artifact that you can equip for 0. Why can't I think of the name of it? Umbral Mantle. There you go.
Yep.
Umbral Mantle equips for 0. So the thing about this bird that's disgusting is it doesn't draw you cards. It puts the cards into your hand, and it puts the lands onto the battlefield untapped. So you're not getting Bowmaster blown out by this damn thing because you're not drawing cards. You're just revealing them and putting them in your hand. Mm-hmm. You're putting lands into play untapped.
Notably, it doesn't have to be non-token. So if you are making, like, you're on a Murmuring Mystic or something, and you're making a bunch of fucking 1/1 flyers, you target all of them. It's pretty stupid.
And the reason this one will see a crap ton of play, there's a couple of them, but the main ones you're going to look at seeing, and if you see them against them, kill this card. But anywho, Scoot Swarm.
Yeah.
A land enters the battlefield, you make an insect. Unless you have 6 or more lands, then you're making Scoot Swarms. and then you're making just multiple Scoot Swarms. It's disgusting. There's a new one from this set we didn't put on this list, but it's Spring Heart Nantuko. We didn't put it on the list because it really probably only belongs in this deck. It's 1 green and 1 for a 1/1 insect monk that has Bestow of 1 green and 1. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, but it has landfall, make an insect, and you may pay 1 green and 1 if it's attached to a creature you control. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature. If you didn't create a token this way, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. That's landfall triggers. So basically, landfall, you're getting 1/1 insects. If you want on your last landfall token, you can pay 1 green and 1, sack Nadu, and then boom, all of your tokens have a new. Whenever it gets targeted, he gets 2 triggers.
Also, anything there's blue flicker spells to where like in planar incision and ghostly flicker,
kitten.
yada yada yada, displacer kitten. To where you flicker this and now all of a sudden all those things reset and you just keep going. So there is a world where you get one thing out that can be targeting things for free. Great example. Lightning Greaves just fucking attaches to everything for free over and over and over. All of these things happen. And then you flicker this guy. You leave the Lightning Greaves on one of your other creatures. You flicker this guy. Then you move Lightning Greaves back to him. You draw your whole fucking deck. You win with Thassa's. Or you capsize everybody, because you can make infinite mana. Or
just in goldfishing with this, I've legitimately, without even going infinite with like Hullbreaker, because that's also in the deck, but without going infinite with mana, just because of Scoot Swarm and the multiplications of copies you get when you get to that card. Granted, it's goldfishing. I haven't played this in paper yet because that's waiting for this upcoming live stream. But I've literally produced 50 million green mana on turn 2 and put my entire deck into my hand.
I played against this deck once, and the Scoot Swarm came down, and thankfully I had the interaction to stop that. That just enabled somebody else to win, which sucked. But, this deck was definitely a threat. And like on paper, it seems okay, but then when you start actually digging deeper, like it can go pretty fucking nuts, pretty fucking fast.
Yep, every removal
probably the best commander printed in the set. I built a couple other commanders from the set, which I think are pretty good, but they still don't compare as far as like how easy this thing is to go. And I don't know why it's always fucking Simic commanders just get all this fucking shit to go ham, but here we are. That is the nature of the beast, so to speak. So,
the nature of the bird wizard.
It is notably a 4-butt, so yeah, those lightning bolts won't hit kill, but that Ghostfire Slice can kill that fucker. So maybe you should be running it. Also, probably run your Pyros and your REBs because that'll kill it too.
This is definitely a kill on site. I was just going to say. MH3, I think the theme of MH3 is 4-butts everywhere. Am I wrong? It's bizarre. Anyway.
There are a lot of them, and that is definitely a theme. But then also being able to kill 4-butts, which is not terrible. We've needed that in the format for a while. That basically wraps it up. That was the last card we had. There are obviously a lot of other cards we could talk about. There's some cool Eldrazi's. The Titans got new reprintings that I think are super sweet, but they're just not cEDH viable, I don't think. They're going to be the kinds of cards that we'll see in casual decks and whatnot. Probably other stuff too. If we miss something, let us know. Again, comments. Yeah, sure. We love to hear from you. Feedback is great. Any closing thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just looking forward to see what people come up with. There's a whole ton from this new set and a whole bunch of weird legends. So I'm going to be very excited if an energy viable cEDH commander finally comes out of this. So we'll see what happens. So until then, just happy brewing, everybody.
Also, as Kirk mentioned, probably will come out after the fact because in like 24 hours we're going to be streaming our own personal MH3 brews. VOD will be available and edited gameplay depending on when this releases. But yeah, check out the channel. There'll be some gameplay of some of these new commanders so you can see them in action. But otherwise, we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. We're going to get down with whatever the next topic is. And yeah, thanks for listening. Make sure you like, subscribe, comments, etc. Hit the Patreon if you're willing to throw us a buck or two, because every little bit helps with production values and all that other good stuff. And otherwise, have a great day, evening, year, lifetime, rest of your existence, and we will see you soon. See ya.